They say the scariest monsters live under your bed. They tell you to lock your windows and watch out for strangers in the shadows. But they're wrong. The real monsters don't hide in the dark. They sit right across from you at the dinner table, smiling, passing you the salt, and asking how your day was. They're the ones who taught you how to walk, all while methodically sawing off your crutches so you can never wander too far from their control. This isn't just a story about a dysfunctional family. This is an autopsy of a high-stakes betrayal. It's about how parental love can be weaponized into a financial fraud. Imagine a mother and a stepfather who can look their son in the eye, hug him, and then go to a courthouse to declare him mentally slow, just to keep a steady flow of cash coming in. Imagine them using your stolen future to buy a lakefront house and a shiny new truck while you're starving and working for a man who wants to break your spirit. My name is Alex. For 4 years, I was a prisoner in a house I was paying for. I was a disabled son who worked 100-hour weeks just to feed the greed of the people I called parents. Grab a cup of coffee. Lock your doors. Today, we're going to find out exactly how much it costs to sell your own child's soul. Let's set the scene. Autumn 2013. I was 19 years old. I had just walked away from a local community college, much to the horror of my neighbors and relatives. I wasn't stupid, I was just bored. I couldn't sit in a plastic chair listening to a professor who had never gotten his hands dirty talk about economic theories when I could feel the literal vibration of a polisher in my palms. I got a job at Diamond Gloss, a high-end auto detailing and restoration shop. This wasn't a place where you just washed cars. This was a sanctuary. This was where millionaires brought their vintage Ferraris and custom-built SUVs to be protected with ceramic coatings and paint protection films. The air there smelled like heaven, a mix of high-end carnauba wax, chemical solvents, and fresh espresso from the customer lounge. The owners, Silas and Jude, were brothers. They were the kind of men who spoke in grunts but had the eyes of artists. About 6 months in, Silas called me into his office. He was leaning back in a worn leather chair, looking at a Ferrari 250 GTO through the glass partition. "Alex," he said, tossing a heavy folder on the desk, "you've got a gift." Most guys just slap on wax. You see the imperfections before they even happen. We want to send you for master-level certification in Germany. We're talking specialized paint restoration and micro-indentation repair. We pay for the flights. We pay for the hotels. We pay for the tuition. My heart was hammering against my ribs. "Once you're certified," Silas continued, pointing a calloused finger at me, "and you finish your 6-month practicum, your pay jumps. We're talking $35 an hour, guaranteed, plus a percentage of every luxury contract you lead. It's all here in the contract. Take it home, read it, show your folks." I walked home that day feeling like I was glowing. I burst through the front door, shouting for my mom. She was in the kitchen, and my stepfather, Victor, was hunched over the kitchen table, his glasses sliding down his nose as he obsessed over some spreadsheets. "Mom! Victor! Look at this!" I laid the contract over Victor's papers. "Silas is sponsoring me. I'm going to Germany. $35 an hour, guys. That's nearly $70,000 a year, and I'm only 19? The silence that followed was ice cold. Victor didn't even look at the contract. He just pushed it aside to reveal his spreadsheet again. "A car washer, Alex? Really?" Victor finally raised his eyes. "You think scrubbing dirt off other people's toys is a career? You're building your house on sand. Money is a shadow. You need a law degree, or at least public administration. We've already spoken to the local university. You start their bridge program for adults in 2 weeks. It's non-negotiable." "Victor, did you hear the part about $35 an hour?" I asked, my voice cracking. "That's more than you make at the city council." He stood up slowly. Victor was a man who took pride in his moral superiority. He walked over to me and poked a finger into my chest. "Hard. As long as you live under this roof, you will not be a common laborer. You want to stay? Fine. If you're man enough to work, you're man enough to pay your share. Starting Monday, your rent for that bedroom is $550. You will also take over the cable, the fiber internet, and the utility overflow. That's another $280. Total, $830 every first of the month. Cash, no excuses. My heart sank. That was almost my entire take-home pay at the time. He wasn't just asking for rent, he was calculatedly draining my ability to save enough to move out. It was a financial checkmate. And Alex? Victor added, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. If you miss a single lecture at the university, I'll consider it a breach of our agreement. I'll have your tools and your clothes on the curb before the sun sets. Your choice. Be a student or be a homeless car washer. I looked at the contract from diamond gloss in my hand. It was my ticket to the stars. I looked at the university brochure on the table. It was my cage. I made the choice that would haunt me. I stayed. I told Silas I'd do the night shift at the shop and weekends so I could attend classes during the day. Silas looked at me like I was insane. You're going to burn out, kid, he warned. I can handle it. I lied. By the time November 2014 rolled around, I had forgotten what it felt like to be awake without a pounding headache. My existence had narrowed down to two smells: the chemical sweetness of high-end car polish and the stale, dusty air of the university lecture halls. I was pulling a schedule that would have broken a seasoned convict. Up at 5 a.m. at the university by 8 for classes on social policy and legal ethics, the irony of which wasn't lost on me. By 2 p.m., I was sprinting to Diamond Gloss, where I worked until midnight, sometimes 1 a.m., prepping luxury vehicles for the next day's showroom. My hands were permanently stained with compound, and my back felt like a collection of broken glass. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the psychological war waiting for me at home. Every Friday, Victor was there. He wouldn't even let me take off my coat. He'd be sitting at that same mahogany table with a ledger open, looking like a high-stakes accountant for the devil. The heating bill spiked this week, Alex, he'd say, tapping a pen against his teeth. You're coming in late, turning up the thermostat, taking long showers to wash off that, whatever that grease is. We're going to need an extra $150 this month for maintenance. La me fie peoples. And since you're never here to help your mother with the yard work, let's add a $60 contribution for the gardener. I'd stand there, swaying on my feet from exhaustion, and hand over the cash. My bank account was a flat line. Fioke with a C. I was earning more than any of my peers, but I was effectively penniless. I was paying for the privilege of being a guest in a house where I was treated like a nuisance. The true crazy hook happened in the middle of a massive project for Silas. We had just secured a contract to restore a fleet of vintage porches for a private collector. Part of my job was to use a specialized spectral analysis software that communicated with the manufacturer's database in Stuttgart. I had to do this at night because of the time difference. I was in my room at 2:15 a.m., the blue light of the laptop reflecting in my bloodshot eyes. I was halfway through a complex paint depth calibration when the screen froze. The Wi-Fi icon turned gray. I waited. 1 minute. 2. I rebooted the router. Nothing. I walked out into the hallway. The house was silent, except for the heavy, rhythmic ticking of the grandfather clock. Then I saw a shadow move in the kitchen. Victor was standing there, holding the power cable to the router in his hand. He looked at me with a calm, terrifying blankness. What are you doing, Victor? I'm in the middle of a diagnostic sync. If that connection drops, the data gets corrupted. I'll lose 8 hours of work. You're obsessed, Alex, he whispered. His voice was smooth, like he was reciting a prayer. This job is a sickness. You come home, you ignore us. You go straight to this machine. It's not healthy. You need to focus on your law studies. So, I've decided. The internet is off from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. No exceptions. I pay for that line. I felt a scream building in my chest. Now, I pay $280 a month for the high-speed fiber. It's my money. Victor took a step toward me. He didn't look angry. He looked righteous. He grabbed my forearm, his grip like a steel vice. You pay for the utility, Alex. I provide the sanctuary. In this house, my rules are the law. If you don't like it, you can take your little polisher and sleep in the garage. But if you try to plug this back in, I will consider it an act of defiance. I'll call my friends at the station, and we'll see how a delinquent like you handles a night in a cell for domestic disturbance. Do you think Silas will keep you on if you have a record? I looked at him and realized he wasn't trying to help me. He was trying to sabotage me. He knew exactly what that job meant to me, and he was cutting the lines one by one. The next day at the shop was a disaster. Silas was pacing the floor, looking at the corrupted data on the monitor. Alex, what happened? Stuttgart is asking why the sink was severed. We lost the window. The collector is breathing down my neck. I couldn't tell him. How do you tell your boss that your stepfather is holding your internet hostage? I made up an excuse about a power outage, but I could see the shift in Silas's eyes. The trust, the golden boy status, was evaporating. When I got home that afternoon, my mother was waiting. She didn't mention the internet. She just handed me a plate of freshly baked bread. You look so stressed, Alex, she said, her voice dripping with artificial sympathy. Victor is just worried about your grades. He says you were up all night playing on the computer. Maybe you should listen to him. Maybe the detailing shop is just too much for someone with your sensitivities. Sensitivities? I spat. Mom, I'm the best detailer they have. Are you, honey? Io? She tilted her head, looking at me with genuine pity. Because Victor says Silas called him and said you've been distracted. Maybe it's time to think about a different line of work. Something simpler. Something that doesn't make you so angry. That was the moment I realized they were working as a team. He was the hammer, and she was the anvil. They were shaping me into a version of myself that was too broken to leave. I started driving to a 24-hour gas station 3 miles away just to use their spotty Wi-Fi to submit my university assignments. I'd sit in my car at 3 a.m., shivering, typing on my laptop while the clerk watched me suspiciously. I was paying $830 a month for a home I was afraid to enter. And that's when the ultimatum came. The bridge program was ending, and Victor decided that the detailing shop wasn't working for the family image anymore. He had a friend, a man named Grog, who ran a heavy metal fabrication yard. Real work, Victor said. Work that builds a man. Bleh. I didn't know it yet, but I was about to trade the scent of carnauba wax for the smell of burning ozone and the sound of a man who wanted to see me bleed.